Hi, everyone. Welcome to Business Transition Summit Podcast, where we deep dive into the stories and strategies of the renowned speakers that will be featured at this year's Business Transition Summit. We'll be investigating how you can become a part of the 17% of business owners who successfully navigate their path to a dream exit. So get ready to be inspired, informed, and equipped as we kick off this transformative journey. And be sure to attend the Business Transition Summit for exponentially more information. It's time for you to prepare to join the 17% Club and make your dream exit a reality. I'm Tom Bronson, CEO and founder of Business Transition Summit, and I'm part of the 17% Club myself. In fact, I've exited 100 businesses. This episode is part of our series called Tales from the 17% Club. As we've said over and over again, a full 83% of attempted business transitions fail to reach the finish line, meaning that only 17% are successful. In this series, we interview people who have successfully sold their businesses. We call them the 17% Club, to learn more about the process and hear some interesting stories along the way. Today will not disappoint. So in this episode, I'd like to welcome our guest, Mitch Felderhoff, president of Muenster Milling Company, a fourth-generation dog food manufacturer in Texas. I met Mitch through Biz Owners Ed, the North Texas nonprofit that provides mentorship and education for business owners. Now, you might wonder why a fourth-generation business owner is on our 17% Club podcast, where we interview business owners who've successfully transitioned their business. Well, this is going to be one of those very unusual stories that includes not one, but two business transitions and an owner who ate his own dog food for a month. So stick around. This is going to be a fun ride. Welcome, Mitch.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. So give us a little background on Muenster Milling Company, the business that you and your brother bought from your parents in 2015 and then sold.
Yeah, so Muenster Milling Company has been around for 90 years this April, be 9 decades. My great-grandfather, he was a sharecropper back during the Great Depression. And a lot of the local farmers needed a place to take the grain and thought he was a great worker and decided to borrow him the money to finance his operation so that he could put a flour mill in. About 5 years after putting the flour mill in, he realized he could drive to Kansas and get the flour cheaper and bring it back than what he could mill it for himself. So he converted this facility into a livestock feed mill. And we made a lot of dairy feed for the next probably close to 50 years. And then when the dairy consolidation took place in the industry and the cheese plants went to Wisconsin and California, because at the time Muenster had a small cheese plant. And so we sold the dairy feed to the dairies. They brought the milk to town, made cheese. It was just a circle that worked well for everyone. When that left, we started making a lot of actually, we switched to horse feed, emu feed, anything that we could make. So my dad put an extruder in 1990, which is what makes a conventional pet food kibble that you see. Wasn't really a customer base there. We just put it in to do something different. We got a lot better at it in probably the early 2000s. I joined the business in 2007, was only in the state for a short time, had some success, excuse me. Decided that we wanted to scale the business and then convinced my brother to come back and join me so that we could try and take it to the next level.
Wow, that is quite a long history. Just about to celebrate the 90th anniversary. That is amazing. Now, your father's still around. Is your grandfather still around?
No, my grandfather, unfortunately, he passed probably about 5 or 6 years ago. Dad is still around. He is just no longer in the business.
No, got that. So, well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that first transition, buying your parents out. What precipitated that transaction, and how did you pull it off?
Well, working for your parents is a unique dynamic in itself.
I've done it myself before. In fact, I have the dubious distinction of being fired by my father twice. So
I think they probably told me that 3 or 4 times. I just never listened. But yeah, they brought me in essentially. When they hired me, it was to bring change to the business and modernize it and turn over some new pages. At the end of the day, they didn't agree with all those, but they could see that the business needed some of it. My dad had turned 58 and was tired of borrowing money and being in debt. And the changes that I wanted to make required additional debt. And so we wanted to get into the freeze-dried category, which is kind of the highest tier of premium that you can get in pet food. And he didn't really want anything to do with it because every machine costs $1 million. And we were going to need quite a few of them to ramp the business up. And so he said, you can do it, but not with my money. And if you want it, then you're going to have to buy it. So I'm tired of being in debt. I'm tired of working so hard. And if you want to do it, you can, just not with my money.
Wow. So it was okay with you making the changes, but he wanted you to buy him out. So is he the guy that came up with the idea to actually buy your parents out?
No, that was actually me, because in a family type setting like that, your dad says that in a business, that doesn't necessarily mean he's ready. And so I came back the next week thinking, okay, let's hammer this out. He's like, well, I wasn't really serious. Like, you really want to buy it, which set off a whole new chain of events and discussions. And eventually I had some great friends and mentors that helped me say, hey, here's the best way to approach it. Ironically, after meeting with them, walked into the office one day and there were some private equity guys getting a tour.
Really? So your dad had already talked with some private equity folks about just selling the business outright.
He took a call between that conversation and the few weeks that I went and consulted with some mentors, and came back in and they were getting a tour, and I sat down and had a nice discussion with them, and they were interviewing me for a sales position for the new company, and interviewing my brother to run operations. They had several other facilities that did similar functions to what we did, and wanted to give us both a role in that. And we declined and said, no, we don't want to continue working for someone else. We're trying to build our own thing here. And
that was you and your brother. You were both unified in that position.
Absolutely. Yeah. Cause he had spent probably 7 or 8 years prior working for Gavilon, which is similar to like a ConAgra Foods. And he had bounced around a lot, and he had played that game already.
Got it. So was that a total surprise when you walked in and private equity was there taking a tour?
It was pretty surprising. Yeah. We were taken back for sure, especially with that warning on it. But it was also a good sign that he is ready to move, and he's starting to take action. So we didn't take it personal. We just kind of looked at it as more of a green light to press harder.
What a great lesson to share with other family business folks that might be listening to this podcast, that it's not a personal thing. It is business, right? It's part of your family, but it is business. And you took it exactly the right way. This is now a clear sign that Dad's ready to go. If he's entertaining private equity, and then you took kind of matters into your own hands. So did the private equity make an offer, and did you have to compete against them to get the business?
So I don't know that they made a formal offer, but they gave an indication of here's where they would probably fall. Those numbers are always really a gray area.
You said that right. Yes.
Yeah. But the dad took it as truth and kind of said, here's the bar. And here's where it needs to be, because this is what I'd be willing to take from them. So this is what it would be from you.
Wow. Even taking the indication of interest, you might have saved some money, Mitch, if you'd have had them go all the way through due diligence, because just for the education of our audience, typically when offers come in, and don't get me wrong, I'm not disparaging private equity. They're in a very important part of the M&A ecosystem for sure. But they'll make an indication of interest, and they almost always give you a range, right? It's somewhere between this and that. And the number that business owners always hear is the top number. Let's say it's a range of 25 to 30 million. So I hear 30 million, but the number that they really intended me to hear was 25. And by the way, that's the ceiling. That's, it's never going to go over 25 after they go through due diligence and all of that ticks that down. So perhaps you could have saved a little money if you'd have said, just go ahead and take it through due diligence, Dad, and see. So you came in, then you and your brother came in with an offer, and that kind of set the bar. And so sort of would you call it a friendly transaction? And did each side, even though it was your parents, there are two sides to this coin, right? You're the buyer, they're the seller. Did you each have legal representation?
We did, yeah. So we hired a merger acquisition attorney. We hired David Hammer and worked with him, and he was great. And it was probably an unconventional process because there was no due diligence. It was, here's the number that you have to hit, find a way to do it. And so we worked with some asset lenders, and David helped us get creative on employment agreements and stock options to hit the number. And it was one of those, this is the number or it's not happening. And so David helped us put it together in a way that protected both sides. The legal side of it was great because it kept everything black and white and pulled the emotion out. And as far as how friendly was it, there was no ill will on either side. There was just, he had a line in the sand that just basically nothing crossed. So we made lots of concessions. We did not do due diligence. So we just had to trust that everything is what was said. Sorry, I gotta 1 second. Yeah. We had to trust.
The light went out.
Yeah, it went out.
I can still see you.
we just had to trust that everything was fact. And when you're doing inventory, not in the most modernized way, there were risks there that we just had to assume. And there was no escrow and true up on working capital. It just was what it was at closing. And so overall, it probably took us close to 9 months just to get to the point from the initial conversation to where papers were drafted. We drafted the original paperwork, and it was 10 or 12. No, it was like 56 pages. And my dad just said, I'm not reading this and definitely not signing it. It needs to fit on 12 pages or it doesn't happen. Yeah.
Whoa. Your definitive agreement was 56 pages, and your dad said he'll only read 12.
Yes. And so we fit it all on 12, and
would you like reduce it to 3-point type or something?
Well, unfortunately, David just said, guys, I don't like it. We'll do it. Here's the risk that you're assuming, not me. And there will be 12 pages, but page 13 will be the signature pages. And that's the way it's going to be.
Wow. Now, so our audience is already familiar with David Hammer. A few weeks ago, he did 2 podcasts, and it's the same presentation that he gives at Biz Owners Ed that we spread over 2 podcasts, so he could give a little bit more detail. He is absolutely one of the best M&A attorneys I know, but also understands the whole taxation issue because he's a CPA. And so, if Hammer says, okay, that's a sign of a good attorney, you guys make the business decision, but let me just tell you where the risks are, right? And then it's your decision to make. It's not my risk, it's your risk, as long as you walk in with eyes wide open. So apparently the risk was reasonable enough where you guys walked in and said, okay, we're doing this.
Yeah, I mean, look, we were both young. I was 30 years old at the time, maybe even 29 when we did the deal, and my brother was 33. So we figured if we're going to screw up, let's do it early. And we'd also learned that if you owe someone $1,000, you have a problem. If you owe someone several million, they have a problem.
Yes. And I remember writing that down from your interview at Biz Owners Ed. That's one of my favorite quotes from you, that if you owe somebody $1,000, you have a problem. If you owe them a few $1 million, they have a problem. I love that quote.
Yeah, absolutely.
So once it played out, you guys did the closing. let's just talk about closing day. Was it emotional for you and your parents, or was it just here we're closed and off we go?
It was more of a check the box transactional. I think there was more emotional struggle on their end because, they said they wanted to do the deal, and then there was a struggle getting through all of the details of how the deal would work, how do you come to the price, and what is life after the deal like in the relationship from a business standpoint. So there were a lot of contentious moments that did make it difficult. And then on closing, when you've done something for 40 or 50 years, like my parents had, it became their identity. And so they didn't really have a plan for what happens after and what happens when, because they didn't buy my grandparents out probably until my grandparents were in their 80s. It was quite a ways off. So I don't think they envisioned everything happening as quickly as it did, which is great for them because they got paid a lot quicker. As opposed to having to wait another 20 or 30 years for it. And it happened quickly. And there was a little bit of resentment on their end. I think that it did happen. So it took some time for them to work through that. So it kind of felt like there was some holding the nose as you sign the paper. Almost like, well, I said I was going to do it. I committed to it. We went through the process and now I actually have to sign the papers.
Yeah, I know the same kind of day. My dad sold his business when he was 55 years old and really didn't know what he was going to do next. In fact, I write about that in my book. I call that Act 3, right? Act 1 is our youth when we're young and stupid. And then Act 2 is kind of the earning and family years. And Act 3 is what's next, right after that. And it makes it very difficult to do that. Your dad was, you say 58 when this transaction happened, or 59?
Yep. 50. I think he's 59.
Yeah. So that's tough if you don't know what to do. And that's one of the things that we spend a lot of time with our clients talking about. What does Act 3 look like? When I ask a business owner, what are you going to do when you don't have to come to the office every day? And if the answer is, I'll just play golf, then I have to hire or holler BS on that, because you can only play so much golf, and then you get bored with it because you want some value in your life. And so I'll bet that was a struggle for them. Maybe I'll have them as a guest on this podcast to talk about that at some point. So you got through the transaction, and it finally played out. Were you able to actually make the changes and get the money that you needed to modernize the business? And if so, what was the result?
Yeah, so we did well at first. We got a line of credit. We had a great banker that we worked with locally that worked at a land bank. Chad and I played football with him in high school, and he had been trying to work with us for a while. So he was very instrumental in helping us put the program together. His name's Craig Hartman and works with Lone Star Ag Bank, and was just a tremendous individual and set us up with a line of credit to go along with the debt purchase. Because if you don't have a line of credit and no cash, you're in trouble. So it was awesome. We made a lot of changes day one that we had wanted to make from a pricing standpoint, how we managed inventory, and just who we were purchasing things from. And so it led to some immediate success. And in that first year, we had just a fantastic year where I think we increased our margin by close to 50% by making a lot of the changes that we wanted to, and ended up doubling our profit for the year. Which,
did you still share your financials with your parents, and did they go, "Wow, maybe we should have made these changes"?
Well, they were still there for a while. Part of the deal with Dad was he didn't have to give his office up for 2 years because he didn't know what he was going to do, but he knew he wanted to come in, and was probably one of the most notorious chain email forwarders in the country. He would just forward email chains nonstop with jokes and political statements, and had lots of hot opinions. And so they were able to see the numbers coming through, and it actually probably stung them a little bit more than it made them celebrate at first.
Well, I'm sure at the end of the day, they realize how proud they are of you guys doing that. You know, when my brother and I, similar situation, my brother and I worked for our father, and we would bring him ideas and things. My dad, unlike your situation that you described, his stock answer was always, "Well, why don't you give it a try?" And we didn't learn until way down the road after he sold the business that used to make him angry because the ideas that we had and the stuff that we were bringing to the table were ideas that he'd had on his own years before, but tried to pull them off and couldn't make it work. And then we worked, and then we figured out how to pull off the things, and so he would just say, give it a try. And he said, that used to piss me off that you guys would be able to do the things that I couldn't do, but I couldn't be prouder, right, of you guys' ability to be able to do that. So that is an interesting kind of dynamic. You just brought back a flood of memories about that with my dad. Unfortunately, my dad passed 3 years after he sold the business, and so he's been gone for now 22 years or 20, coming up on 23 years, I guess. So we're coming up on a break, but before we do break, a couple of quick questions. Let's tease the audience with a little bit about your second transition. What made you decide to sell the business not long after you and your brother bought it?
Well, it wasn't long, but it felt like 90 years. We essentially created a new vertical and category within the business, and we borrowed heavily against it. So we reinvested every penny we ever made from the company, continued to go straight into the business. And so we were heavily leveraged, and we got to a point to where, borrowing $1 million at a time was no longer feasible to help continue the growth where it needed to be. And we needed to take bigger chunks and build new buildings and new facilities. And so we were at a point to where it was either sit here for the next 5 to 8 years, save every penny you make so that you can reinvest it in 5 to 8 years and hope that the market doesn't pass you by, or get aggressive and go find, professional money now to build the facilities that you want to build and build the program and the business that you really want to build. Because we had watched the business get passed, all 3 generations got passed at some point. My great-grandfather got passed by people that could do flour better and cheaper. My grandfather got passed because the industry consolidated and moved out of his reach. And my dad got passed on the natural pet food because we didn't put more extruders in and had more space. And we didn't want to get passed again. So we had started something really, really strong, and we wanted to continue to leverage that. And we didn't have the resources we needed without bringing help in.
That is wildly insightful about your own business and kind of thinking about the historical lessons that led you to that decision. So how long was it after you bought out the business that you started thinking about then finding additional capital to grow this? I don't even know what the time span was.
It was about 2 years after, because
Okay.
we actually tried and failed on an expansion opportunity. Up here in Gainesville, we tried to do a $30 million expansion through an opportunity zone, and we actually made it almost to the finish line. We were about a month away from signing, and the steel tariffs went into effect, and the price of steel went up about $3.5 million for the project. And we called the bank and said, hey, there's been an adjustment from the bid on the contractor. We're going to need an extra $3.5 million on this project. And they said, no problem, just bring cash to make up the difference, which we did not have. And so when we hit that mark and realized we were about to risk everything we had and probably be within like 5% of budget as an expectation, and after seeing that we would have been 10% short, it was a realization that we needed to grow something that we could get other people to believe in and put real money behind.
So you made the decision to go find some professional money. How long did that process take from the decision to, okay, we're going to go find some new money until you actually closed a transaction?
So that was in late 2017 that we kind of had that epiphany, but we knew we had to build something worth investing in for someone to come put the capital behind. So we bought our first small lab freeze dryer, like $3,500 on Black Friday, I think. We spent 6 months trying to figure out how to use it in our office. We decided that we believed in it, and we ordered our first freeze dryer in, I think, April of 2018. And then 2020 hit, COVID hit. We had just ordered 2 more right before COVID. And we got a call from the manufacturer and said, hey, if you guys don't want to continue, if you don't want to accept these freeze dryers, I've got other people that'll buy them. And we just said, no, we're going to get this over with quickly, or we're going to be awesome. And we went on ahead and continued. And once those 2 machines came and the capacity was spoken for, we knew that we were on the train to having to find more capital.
Oh, that's awesome. That's a smart play. COVID, how did it impact your business? I'm guessing that probably not a dramatic downside effect like you would find in a restaurant, for example. I mean, people still have pets and they wanted to take care of their pets. How did COVID impact you guys?
So we grew by about 30% in 2020. It was a big year for us because pet adoptions went through the roof. Everyone was stuck at home and wanted a friend. And so the pet category alone, if you didn't grow by 15%, you went backwards. And it was a really tough year from a labor standpoint and supply chain and still fighting through that. But, we had weeks where we were 25% staffed and orders were up, 150% in the category. So just muscling through that, Chad was spending 70 hours a week at the plant just trying to get product out.
Wow. And that's when you say, hey, Dad, I know what you can do in your retirement. Come on over here and run these machines for us.
Yeah, we thought about it.
No doubt. Now, did you have a transition team for this process? Attorney, CPAs, any of that?
We did. Chad and I did most of the heavy lifting. So we didn't bring an advisor on until the very last second. It was, we were having nothing but casual conversations with a couple of the private equity groups that we talked to for a couple of years. And then one of them put a number on a piece of paper and it escalated quickly. And I got a call from another one. I'm like, hey, I think we're in a process officially. Not really sure how it happened, but I've got something I'm interested in signing. And so within probably a month, we had 4 or 5. And that's when we called our mentors again and said, hey, Jay, David, what do we need to do? And that's when they recommended, hey, I would bring an advisor on to help facilitate the transaction. If you already know what you're doing and you like the deal and you like who you're working with, that's fine. And we turned down, a much bigger number than we took, ultimately just because we wanted to work with the people that we're working with. And David Hammer did the majority of the heavy lifting for us as our tax attorney and M&A attorney. But yeah, it was due diligence stuff landed on Chad and I.
I'm curious. It occurs to me that you took on private equity money. Was this the same private equity firm that your dad was showing around when you arrived those years before?
It is not. No.
That would have been the irony of all ironies, right?
It would have been. It would have been. They're probably great people too.
Awesome. So how did your parents react to this second transaction?
They were a little bit surprised. But overall, I think they were happy. It's the first time now in 90 years that our family hadn't been in debt to the same facility. So they know what it's like to carry that weight around. And I think they were happy to see us accomplish it. And it's been good for the community. We've added close to 50 jobs since we purchased the business and take pretty good care of everyone. So I think it's been a good thing.
That's awesome. That's awesome. We're talking with Mitch Felderhoff, member of the 17% Club. We're on a mission to make that 17%, 25%, 30%, 50%, right? Because it just breaks my heart when I see that, just like you. So, well, folks, you heard it here first. Get your ticket to the Business Transition Summit now at businesstransitionssummit.com and take your first steps toward achieving your dream exit. It's time for you to join the 17% Club and make your dream exit a reality. Now, don't miss out on this exclusive opportunity to gain invaluable insights, connect with industry experts, and discover the strategies that can truly transform your business, just like Steve was saying. Tickets are limited, so act fast and reserve your spot today. Advanced pricing is now open, and this is your last chance to get a discount ticket before we go to regular pricing. Thanks to you, our listeners, for joining this episode of the Business Transition Summit podcast. We're glad you're here, and we hope you found it both informative and entertaining, if not scary a little bit, right? Because we need to be thinking about those things. Now, if you don't want to miss any future episodes, just hit that subscribe button where you found this or on your favorite podcast platform. And while you're there, do us a favor and rate this episode and leave us a review, because that helps us to deliver better information to you and to reach more business owners. We look forward to sharing lots more with you on how you can achieve your dream exit as we continue this journey next week. But for now, go to businesstransitionsummit.com to learn about the event and sign up and start the path to making your dream exit a reality. I look forward to seeing you at the Business Transition Summit on May 7th in Westlake, Texas.
The Business Transition Summit is an opportunity for you to educate yourself, empower your business, and execute relentlessly on your exit strategy. Have you heard this stat before? 83% of business owners fail to successfully transition their business. That means that only 17% ever reach their dream exit from their business. Business owners, we don't want that to be you. We want you at the Business Transition Summit to kickstart or continue your dream exit journey. Join us for an unforgettable experience where industry titans, successful entrepreneurs, and top experts converge to share their wisdom, strategies, and secrets to success on exit strategy. Block your whole day on May 7th, 2024. Get your tickets, transform your business and life forever. Visit businesstransitionsummit.com for more information.